Imagine you log into your Shopify dashboard today, like you probably do anyway, and what the fuck just happened? Traffic is down, sessions are down, everything is going to hell, but revenue is up. As a matter of fact, you just hit another record day and you cannot explain yourself how. But I can tell you why, because this time something is different. This time the purchase didn't come from a click. They didn't click on a typical ad, how you used to know it. This time, the purchase comes from a conversation. And this might sound crazy to you. You might be thinking like, what the fuck is Chris talking about today? He probably lost his mind now, but no. This time the purchase came from a conversation. And this is the reality for a lot of ecom brands out there already. And it will probably come more and more in the future. And what I'm talking about is a conversation from ChatGPT. So today we are talking about a conversation from ChatGPT, traffic from ChatGPT, and that's something that's coming more and more. So today we're talking about ChatGPT ads or any other LLM in that case versus Google ads and Meta ads. What's different, the future of advertising, what's coming, and how you win before everybody else wakes up. So let's dive straight into it. If you run an ecom brand right now already, you know the game. You know, okay, Google is for demand capture. Someone searches, you intercept, pull marketing. Meta is more like demand creation. You interrupt, you spark desire, you push your ad into their feed, push marketing. And both kind of rely on the same principle. The user sees your ad, they click, they land on your site, your landing page, your website, your Shopify store, whatever, and they might hopefully buy. But ChatGPT is different. ChatGPT flips the script, or again, any other LLM in that case. Because suddenly you don't have a website, you don't have a storefront anymore. The purchase might happen during the conversation and you get just linked to your checkout directly and you buy. So very different, right? It kind of like breaks the typical customer journey, typical purchase process with upper funnel, mid funnel, low funnel. So suddenly you don't have it separated like that anymore. Suddenly it's a smooth process and you go through the different steps within that conversation, right? Because you have way more personal touch points. It's just different. So we want to break down how it's different and how it works. All right, here's the cleanest way to understand it again. Google ads, basically, I'm looking for X right now, you buy. Very straightforward. Meta ads is more like, I wasn't really looking. I'm in this audience, right? I'm in this target group. Saw the ad, now want it. ChatGPT ads in the future will look something like that. I'm looking for this, tell me what to buy and why in a nutshell. And based from that principle, we will see different ad types and how they work. So you can see already very, very different type of discovery process, different approach, how you will reach the potential customer and how you will show it, right? That's why you cannot just randomly show ads within ChatGPT now. That whole system needs to be developed, and also there are a lot of other factors that need to be established first, but we will dive into that in a second. All right, so let's break it down and how it works. So we will make a difference here between ChatGPT and again, any other LLM in that case, but let's use ChatGPT as one of the most popular options, and then Google and Meta ads on the other side. So let's start with Google and Meta. We are quite familiar already with how it works. So Google is very much context and keyword based, right? So people are already looking for something specific and you can provide your solution, the perfect solution for their problem. So that's why it's so powerful, right? You can present yourself perfectly in the lower funnel with a shopping ad. That's why it usually has a very high ROAS and high return on investment. So very powerful system, context and keyword based. The issue there is it's quite competitive as well, of course, right? I mean, self-explanatory. Meta, more or less interest and audience based. So obviously they have a lot of data about you and me and everybody else. And that's why they can put you into this interest and audience groups. And then you see an ad that's suddenly perfect for your situation, right? And you might be interested. You are into buying mode now anyway. So you might click, you might buy, interest and audience based, right? And then we have ChatGPT on the other side. And let's think about it for a second. How does it work here? So obviously we also have, based on how much we use it, ChatGPT also knows a lot about you. So they can also put you in certain interests, audience, persona clusters. So in that case, it's very similar to Meta and Facebook, as they know a lot of things about you, but you also have context and keywords here, right? Especially if you're like looking for something specific. So that's why it also gets called sometimes as a search engine, and they say ChatGPT is a search engine. And, oh, will it replace Google or not? So you also have that context and keywords, but not as straightforward as with Google. So it's a bit more broader sometimes, you know, especially if you have like a page-long prompt, like you don't really have like keywords here, right? So, but you have the context. You're looking for something. You might be looking for something. A big difference here as well, it's usually in a different funnel step, right? We will look at that in a second. We have context and keyword, and the power of ChatGPT as well is like you have conversations, right? Because it's not just keyword, boom, add landing page purchase, or interest, boom, add landing page purchase. No, you have interest, keyword, everything. But then you go in a conversation, right? Because you're still chatting with ChatGPT. So you have a conversation. You have follow-ups. You have a shopping consultant, or like, yeah, let's say shopping assistant, a consultant, right? That supports you during this buying process, gives you and shows you reviews, recommendations. So all those factors that are quite important here. So there's like way more to it in that case, right? All of those things that we usually want to establish on a landing page, like social proof, authority. This time you cannot establish it just on a landing page, right? It needs to be given, it needs to be there in the feed, and like all of that will be within the conversation instead of a landing page. That's why we said this time, all right, a website might not be that important anymore, or at least it might shift. There can be like, it can go in a lot of different directions, right? But it will apply in that case. All right, so there's that. And then we have like the different funnels, right? Let me just pull that up here. We'll have this like triangles. So typically we have the 3 different funnel steps there, right? If we separate it between upper, mid, and lower funnel. So depending on the campaign type in Google as well, but usually with shopping ads, you're more here in the lower funnel. And with Meta, you also try to be, it depends on the awareness stages and how you push it, which campaign type, which ad type, and in which scaling phase you are in, right? But for smaller brands per se, you want to try to nail that first, right? So you get the most out of it, because it will be more difficult to scale there and attack the upper funnel stages. So with ChatGPT, it's a little bit different. And that's also one of the disadvantages here, because you're not really in that stage at all. Like for purchase driven searches, people still prefer Google, or they go directly to Amazon through Google or through the app directly. So ChatGPT is not really established there yet when it comes to purchases. And think about it, like, when did you ever buy something directly through ChatGPT? Or like you said, okay, I want to buy this, show me something. We don't really use it yet like that, right? It's not really established. Where we use it though is like heavily in these stages, in the discovery phase, where we want to learn, okay, I have this problem. What works? How does it work? What can you recommend? Give me some sources, some links. That's why we have the conversation, right? It's the discovery phase. We have follow-ups. We have an assistant. We have follow-up questions. We want to know more. We want to see. We want to compare. So you're definitely more in the upper mid-funnel section, where you learn, you want to compare before you move forward, right? And then people usually switch to Google Ads and finish the purchase there, or like Meta Ads, click on an ad here and finalize the purchase decision, right? Or they look for something directly, and then you move down the funnel. Like ChatGPT is not that developed on that side yet. There are also no ads, right? They don't really push products a lot yet. So that's like coming more and more, but it will come. And then it will slowly guide you down the funnel. So this is how it will work per se. All right, so the real question now is, what type of campaigns and ad types can we expect? Very interesting, but nobody watching here expects me to have a crystal ball, but there are some ad types that will be very, very likely. So let's break it down. All right, what we will see based on what we discussed right now. Let me write it down again. Something we will see first of all is like very similar to shopping ads. Why? We said, okay, we are more in this discovery phase. They have a problem, they're looking for a solution. They will ask follow-up questions. They will ask for recommendations. And then within those recommendations, you can suddenly see like 5 to 6 brands, right? Basically shopping ads similar to what you have on Google. You will have a feed there as well for sure, right? So it will be connected to a feed. Most definitely that would be very, very similar in terms of infrastructure and everything like on Google. That's why I also start to think about it so much already. Then you will see shopping ads there. It's just like the way it gets shown, right? And how you get to those ads is a little bit different. It's not like a one-step process anymore. It might be within the conversation in different steps, right? Can be a little bit earlier, can be a little bit later in the conversation, depending on when it makes sense. So everything is very conversation-based. That's like the main thing. We'll probably be on a CPC basis as well. We'll be very cheap in the beginning, but will be quite broad as well. And potentially a little bit less purchase intent than what you see in Google, but depends on the conversation a little bit, right? All right, then next, and I don't know how to name it exactly, but I just can explain to you how it will look like. Then we have some sort of follow-up ads. For example, if you had a conversation, a relevant conversation, a purchase-driven conversation the day before, but you didn't follow through or like purchase something, there can be some sort of follow-up ads, right? That show in another chat or that show as some sort of display ad at the top with image ads to just get you back into that issue that you have, right? There can be like follow-ups on older chats. Basically, that's just like retargeting, right? Let's put that in brackets, but it makes a lot of sense. That said, we would generally speaking have some sort of display ads, like normal image ads that just are relevant for your conversations, your context, everything ChatGPT knows about you, right? That you can easily do like on the site. So that will be very similar to what we have with Google with display ads or image ads that you know from Meta. Video ads, I don't see that much yet, honestly. If we have it, it will be in some sort of recommendation where you chat with ChatGPT about the problem that you have, and then it might be, yo, check this out. This is a solution that might be interesting for you. And then it shows you a video, right, that you can watch then, and then you might want to move forward with a purchase. So maybe like that, but in that case, you might realize already, okay, the ad kind of needs to be very native, cannot be like do sales. It needs to be very like value and recommendation driven, right? Or we might see ads like, if depending on how aggressive they will be with that, when you want to like start a new chat and you're not a premium user, and suddenly a non-skippable ad pops up like you have it on YouTube, right? Where you're like, okay, you want to watch a video and then you have a non-skippable ad and you have to watch it. Maybe there will be something like that when you want to like start a chat, you put in your prompt, you click on enter, or like if you do it on your phone, and suddenly you have to like watch the ad first, right, before you can move forward. Similar, that's like very similar to what you have on YouTube. Honestly, not that bad either. Will be probably more like CPM based then as well. So these are like kind of like ads that definitely can come in some shape or form. And then again, like recommendation based ads, right? We mentioned before, like shopping ads that just pop up naturally within the conversation in some sort of recommendation, but can also be like recommendations in general in some like listicle style format, right? Where you like chat with ChatGPT and you're like, yo, and then it's like, here are the top 5 recommendations with some pros and cons. So very, very like listicle style format, right? Can also be like, not only for ecom brands, but also like, hey, give me like the top 5 Google Ads agencies in Vienna, in Austria, whatever, and then it gives you the top 5, and maybe the first 2 are ads, right? Will probably be like also like shown in some shape or form that it's an ad, because it has to be, but then it will also like list some pros and cons and shows you in this format, right? So very interesting. You can see already it can go in a lot of different directions. There will be a lot of ad types down the line. Very interesting platform. But now another very interesting question. How does this affect Google Ads, Google Shopping, as our main campaign type. How does it affect meta ads? So let's break it down. This is a very interesting part. You want to stick with that. Let's compare it to Google Shopping first, right? And I can tell you something now straight away. As a Google Ads advertiser, but I'm quite objective here, Google Ads will not die because of that. Google Ads will not be replaced because of that, and certainly not Google Shopping. Why? Because Google still owns this I want it now moment, where it's just like, you grab my phone, I look for something, and then I buy for Google Shopping, right? We are like still fully with Google on that front. So we don't really use ChatGPT with that. That will not change that quickly. So Google still owns this I want it now moment. You look for something, you buy it. Where Google is a little bit more vulnerable with the current setup is the fact that it's a bit of a comparison engine as well. And in this discovery mode that we discussed here before, right, we see it here, ChatGPT is way, way better with that. Where you have this conversation, you can ask follow-up questions, you can specify a bit more, you can go deeper and then present the perfect solution, right? You don't have that on Google. Because on Google, it's like, okay, search, add, click, boom. So ChatGPT is better with that. But I also expect Google to adjust and adapt with the natural evolution, right? So if we see that coming on ChatGPT, Google is obviously not sleeping, and you see Gemini in the search already more and more. And that can also come with shopping, right? Where it will be more like that. If that's the future of advertising, Google will adjust. Obviously, they will not try to overly innovate on that front because it's already an absolute cash cow for them. So as long as it's working, you would just stick to that, right? But then when needed, and you can be assured they're working on that in the background, then when it's needed, they will push that, right? If it goes more in that direction and if it makes sense, they will push it out on Google as well. So honestly, I see Google in a very, very safe, very secure position in that, and they will be bordered too much by any of these language models. What certainly changes though is it becomes more competitive, and probably you will have less casual browsers on Google, more high intent, and overall more competition, especially in this discovery phase area of the funnel, right? And that can also like mess with attribution, so it will be even more complicated in the future, especially if there's like no specific click to track, right? Attribution can become very, very messy, and it's very messy now already. All right, that's about Google. How does it affect Meta? Because obviously Meta is huge as well, one of the biggest channels for most ecom brands. And I can assure you as well, Meta will still be the king of demand creation. So it will also not change too much, right? So it will still be the number one for demand creation, for push. To get the ad into the feed, we still spend massive amounts of time on social media, so there's still a lot of attention. But what would change, and where Meta has a problem, it sells attention, thrives on attention, but not certainty. Certainty that I can get in this conversation with ChatGPT, right? Where I can go back and forth. So ChatGPT will be insanely strong in this discovery phase. Not in the top funnel, not in the bottom funnel, but in this in-between, the AI will be vital. And that's also why Google is so active with Gemini. That's also why Meta works on their own AI. Not only for that, for several reasons, of course, but this will be one big aspect. And what we might see with Meta in the future is we might see that this Meta AI will be more active within the feed, the platforms in general, the way it shows the ads, where you see the ads, and then you can immediately like go into a conversation, see, check things, compare. So you have basically a virtual assistant. I'm not fully sure yet how that will look like and how it can be implemented so it makes a lot of sense for both advertisers, Meta, and everybody involved, basically, also the user in terms of user experience. But what will stay the same, and what I can tell you 100%, Meta will stay powerful for introducing new brands, testing and scaling creative angles, building desire, building awareness, getting attention. But the actual decision making, like the whole discovery phase and the actual purchase, that might shift to another platform where ChatGPT will be more powerful, where Google can go for the kill. So that might change a little bit, but regardless of that, even if it stays the completely same system within Meta, it will still thrive and will still be powerful. But yeah, we actually might see more funnels like this, right? Where Meta creates the interest and then asks the AI directly within Meta to compare, to make decisions, to analyze, then the purchase happens immediately. If it goes more in this direction overall, the infrastructure for that develops, the platforms change, then we definitely might see that. Because obviously Meta has no interest in outsourcing this discovery phase to another channel, right? And losing out on potential revenue. But yeah, I think it's pretty clear already, and you can tell already, ChatGPT or any other LLM will not replace Google, will not replace Meta, will not replace TikTok. No, it will be another addition to the whole set. It will be another channel that will be very interesting. It's not this magic pill, I think there's a lot of overhype right now. I don't think it will be like this absolute game changer, especially not in the beginning where there will be a lot of testing. And you can compare that to TikTok, right? TikTok is around for ages, even TikTok ads is around for ages, and it took a lot of time for it to become an interesting channel. And only now recently with TikTok Shop, it becomes more and more interesting. And there's still a lot of things to do to make TikTok ads more interesting for some other brands, right? So there's still a lot of weaknesses compared to Google and Meta. So that this doesn't come overnight. There might be a lot of opportunity in the beginning because CPCs and CPMs will be super cheap, right? But there will also be a lot of testing and it might not be that effective for most brands very early on. Either way, that said, how can you prepare for this future of advertising? Once ChatGPT ads are here, how can you win with it? What will be needed? Either way. There are a couple of things, let's write it down. So first of all, trust will be huge. Trust, social proof, authority. Why? Because again, it is conversation based, it is recommendation based as well. So if you can establish this trust with your brand, within the feed, within your site, within external sources, ChatGPT might not trust you that well and doesn't push you that easily, even with ads, which can result in higher CPC, CPMs, or even policy issues, right? Where they're like, nah, this guy, negative Trustpilot review, and they don't even approve for the ad platform because obviously they want to keep quality high, especially in the beginning, right? They don't want fishy advertisers to flood their platform and fuck things up from a user experience standpoint. So that's an absolute no-go. Therefore, policy issues, product truth and information. So no sales language, like real raw product data, so the AI can read it and recommend it, regardless of if it's ads or organic. So the principles stay the same. So with product truth and info, that basically goes hand in hand with clean feed, structure, plus again, product info, right? Because the better the info and data is structured, the easier it is to do the whole targeting around it. Same with Google, right? So we have that. Then content that answers buying questions. Again, if it's about problems, solution, recommendations, reviews, you want to have content that answers these buying questions, even within ads. Maybe even ads will revolve around that, right? That's like more specific to that. So it's even effective on ChatGPT because it's not the same as on Google. It's not the same as on Meta. So the same type of ads might not be that effective there, right? Because it's a very different type of game here. You need to understand that. So content that answers buying questions, does this naturally, that will work, that will win. And that will be important to build the trust as well. And then obviously, last but not least, but it's existing brand demand and authority kind of goes hand in hand with the first step, right? Otherwise, you might see policy issues that you don't get approved. The better you are in that regards already, the easier it will be like to succeed with ChatGPT and ads, right? Obviously, if you try to fake everything and you don't have anything going for you, it will be tricky to like push into that channel. So not as easy as you might think. And yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. ChatGPT versus Google versus Meta. And you see already, it's not a game changer. It's not the new dominator that replaces the old infrastructure that we have. No, it's a new thing. It's an addition to what we currently see working already. It will be hugely interesting, but yeah, it's another layer on top. And don't overhype it, especially in the beginning. Test it, see what's working for you. but you have to understand it will take some time as well for it to be super effective. And yeah, that's pretty much it for today. Hope it was interesting to you. It was certainly interesting for me to dive a little bit deeper into that. Looking forward to test some ads on ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, whatever soon. That's it. See you in the next video. Have a nice day.